They didn't even look him in the eye when he walked in. The moment Ojie Harris stepped through the doors of Regal Bean Cafe in downtown Atlanta, he could feel the stares, judgmental, cold, and condescending. The barista behind the counter glanced at him, her fake smile barely masking her disinterest, then turned her attention back to her phone. The manager, a sharp-chinned man in a beige cardigan with his hair parted so precisely it looked drawn on, didn't even bother to greet him. Ojie's heart thudded, not from nervousness but from the familiarity of it all. He'd seen this story before, same setting, different actors. Still, he adjusted his navy blue suit, rehearsed his elevator pitch one more time in his head, and walked confidently toward the counter. "Excuse me," he began, his voice calm but assertive. "I'm here for the franchise opportunity meeting scheduled for 10 a.m. with Mr. Whitaker." The barista looked up slowly, her eyes scanning him as if he were something foreign. She blinked, paused, and said, "Franchise meeting?" Her tone was soaked in skepticism. "Yeah. I submitted my application online and got an invitation. I received a confirmation email too." He pulled out his phone and showed her the email. She barely skimmed it before she rolled her eyes and called to the back, "Mr. Whitaker? Someone's here about a meeting." Moments later, Mr. Whitaker emerged from the office, his brows furrowed, then quickly lifted when he saw Ojie, as if he were surprised a black man in a clean, well-fitted suit was standing there waiting to talk business. "Ah, yes," he said, forcing a smile. "Ojie, is it?" "Yes, of course. But, there seems to have been a scheduling issue. I'm afraid we won't be able to accommodate you today." Ojie raised an eyebrow. "But I received a confirmation. I traveled from Macon. I took time off work for this." Whitaker nodded as if he cared. "Yes, terribly sorry. Just not a good fit right now. We're being selective with our partners, you see. Image is important to us, presentation, alignment with brand values." There it was. The code. Not a good fit. Image. Brand alignment. All carefully worded phrases meaning, "You don't look like the kind of person we want representing us." Ojie didn't argue. He'd learned long ago that the best form of revenge was success. So he turned, nodded politely, and left the building with the same dignity he'd walked in with. But as he stepped into the hot Georgia sun, he muttered under his breath, "All right then, bet." You see, Ojie Harris was no ordinary man. He'd grown up in the harshest parts of Southwest Atlanta, raised by a single mother who juggled 2 jobs and still made it to every PTA meeting. He'd seen friends lost to the streets, dreams buried before they could even sprout. But Ojie had something different, a fire. He was book smart, street smart, and most of all, resilient. He earned a business degree while working nights as a delivery driver. He studied franchising models the way some studied fantasy football. He didn't just want to survive, he wanted to own something. And Regal Bean Cafe? That was supposed to be his entry point. Their whole brand was about community uplift, minority-owned partners, and coffee with a cause. Until he showed up. What they didn't know was that Ojie wasn't going to beg for a seat at the table. He was going to build his own table. That night he didn't sulk. He strategized. He pulled out a worn leather notebook filled with scribbles and plans he'd been building for months. He called his cousin Troy, a graphic designer, and told him it was time. Time for what? Troy asked. "Time to build a better cafe," Ojie said. "Something authentic. For us. By us." Within a week, Ojie had registered an LLC, True Brew Collective. He didn't have much capital, but what he had was a network. His former coworker Lisa connected him with a small business microloan program. His barber introduced him to a landlord with a vacant space on the east side willing to give flexible terms. And his aunt, a retired baker, offered to run the pastry kitchen. Every night after his shift as a warehouse supervisor, Ojie painted walls, laid tile, and tested recipes with his aunt. He brewed coffee blends using beans sourced from black-owned farms in Ethiopia and Brazil. He printed flyers, set up social media, and created a loyalty program. Within 2 months, True Brew Collective opened its doors. It wasn't fancy. No polished marble counters or overpriced croissants. But it had soul. It had warmth. And it had community. And people came. College students from nearby campuses looking for Wi-Fi and good vibes. Elders from the neighborhood who hadn't had a safe, comfortable space in years. Even influencers began to take notice, impressed by the aesthetics and authenticity. Word spread like wildfire. Ojie's shop got featured in a local food blog, then a regional magazine, then a national podcast on Black-owned businesses. One day as he was restocking shelves, Ojie got a call. "Hello, is this Mr. Harris?" "Yes, speaking. My name is Lauren Charles. I'm a senior acquisitions analyst for Capital Stone Ventures. We're interested in community-based food brands with strong growth. Your cafe came across our radar. We'd love to talk about expansion." Expansion. From rejected applicant to acquisition target. Ojie played it cool, setting up the meeting at his cafe where he could showcase the community vibe. When Lauren visited, she was visibly impressed, not just by the numbers, which were strong, but by the culture Ojie had cultivated. They offered him a deal, backing to expand into 4 more locations under the True Brew brand. But Ojie hesitated. Not because he was scared. Because he was focused. That night he sat alone in the shop, lights dimmed, sipping espresso, thinking about what mattered most. He wanted growth, but not if it meant losing control. Then a different idea took root. He called a lawyer friend from college and said, "I want you to look into Regal Bean Cafe's books. See if they're vulnerable." "What? Why?" "Because I'm not just trying to grow. I'm trying to own the people who said I didn't belong." What Ojie didn't know was that Regal Bean's parent company had overleveraged its rapid expansion, and several franchise owners were unhappy with poor support, hidden fees, and lack of cultural sensitivity in diverse markets. It was a powder keg. And Ojie had just lit a match. He approached 3 struggling franchise owners, quietly. Offered them fair deals to buy out their leases. Branded the locations under True Brew. Then hired local talent and remodeled the interiors. Within 9 months, Regal Bean Cafe was losing market share in multiple key regions. By the following year, word got out. Ojie wasn't just competing. He was dominating. That's when the call came. From Mr. Whitaker. "Ojie," he said, his voice flatter than a soda left open. "I was hoping we could talk. About some kind of partnership." Ojie leaned back in his chair, watching his employees serve a line of customers that wrapped around the block. "Oh, I don't know," he said slowly. "I mean, brand image is important to me. Presentation. Alignment with values." Whitaker chuckled nervously. Right. Of course. But maybe we can work something out. I'm open to offers." Ojie's eyes gleamed. And that's when he did the unthinkable. He bought it. The entire Regal Bean Cafe franchise. Not just the failing stores. The whole company. At auction. At a steal. And on the day the deal closed, he walked into the same downtown location where he was once turned away, wearing the same navy blue suit. Only this time, the barista greeted him with respect. Mr. Whitaker was gone. And the new sign over the door read, True Brew Collective HQ. But what Ojie found upstairs in the locked office would change everything. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Ojie pushed open the door to the upstairs office of what used to be the Regal Bean Cafe flagship store. The same space where he'd once been dismissed like a door-to-door salesman. The room was mostly cleared out, the walls bare, and the desk empty save for a locked filing cabinet shoved against the wall. The realtor said it was probably just old paperwork, but something told Ojie otherwise. He knelt, examined the cabinet, and smiled. The lock was cheap. With a twist of a screwdriver from the maintenance closet, the drawers popped open. What he found inside made his hands freeze mid-motion. Dozens of franchisee contracts, many of them scribbled with red ink. Handwritten complaints. Termination letters. Financial statements. Then, a folder stamped confidential. He opened it. Inside was a list. A list of applicants from the past 3 years. Next to each name, a column labeled First Impressions, another labeled Suitability. As Ojie's eyes skimmed the entries, his jaw tightened. Too urban. Doesn't fit the image. Rough background. Too militant. Nice but not marketable. They had scores next to each profile. Almost all the lowest scoring names were black or brown. He flipped further. There was his name. Ojie Harris. Score 3 out of 10. Notes, smart, maybe too ambitious. Not aligned with company brand. Pass. He sat down, heat rising behind his eyes. It wasn't just a rejection. It had been systemic. Polished racism dressed in spreadsheets and strategic brand decisions. But mixed in with the rage was something else, resolve. He took pictures of every page. Not for revenge. for the record. Still, this wasn't the biggest shocker in the cabinet. Underneath the files was a dusty, sealed envelope addressed to someone named Lyle Fenwick, confidential counsel. He opened it and found internal memos about the company's strategic image shift, deliberately moving away from minority-owned franchises after a public scandal the board blamed on a black franchisee. Ojie remembered that case. It had been framed like a simple business failure. Now he knew better. He called his lawyer. "Malik," he said, "we may be sitting on a discrimination goldmine. This isn't just about me. They've been locking out black applicants for years, and hiding it." Malik was silent for a moment. "You sure you want to go down that road? If you expose this, you're not just a cafe owner anymore. You're going to war with corporate America." Ojie looked around the office. The ghost of what used to be Regal Bean clung to the air like dust. He looked at the framed photo still hanging on the wall, a group shot of the original board members all smiling. All white. "I didn't come this far to sip coffee and stay quiet," he said. "This ends now." Over the next month, Ojie began a quiet crusade. He reached out to former applicants whose names he recognized, people who'd been passed over just like him. Some had tried to start their own shops, others had given up entirely. He told them the truth. He showed them the documents. And one by one they joined him. Together they formed the Brew Uprising, a coalition of minority-owned cafes and investors ready to take the coffee world by storm. But more than that, they were going to sue. Not just for themselves, but for every entrepreneur who'd been quietly shut out of opportunities because they didn't fit a palatable mold. And while the legal team built their case, Ojie grew the True Brew Collective. He opened a location in Birmingham, then Charlotte, then Houston. Each shop was more successful than the last. And every grand opening featured local artists, youth mentorship programs, and free financial literacy workshops. It wasn't just business. It was revolution. Then one morning, Ojie got a text from Malik. "We've got a problem. You need to see this in person. Don't call. Don't text. Just come to the office." Confused but curious, Ojie canceled his meetings and headed to the law firm's office in Midtown. Malik met him at the elevator with a face like stone. "What's going on?" Ojie asked. Malik opened the door to the conference room. On the screen were blown-up images of scanned documents, recent ones. Not from Regal Bean. From his own company. "Where did these come from?" Ojie asked, heart pounding. "We got an anonymous tip. Someone sent these through encrypted email." "Ojie, it looks like someone inside your organization, someone high-level, is feeding information to Regal Bean's old board. And worse, they may have altered your books." Ojie's breath caught in his throat. "What?" Malik clicked to the next page. Bank transfers. Off-the-record meetings. Surveillance footage. Ojie stepped back. "Who the hell?" Malik locked eyes with him. "We have a mole, Ojie. And I think it's someone close. Someone you trust." Ojie clenched his jaw. "How close?" Malik turned the screen again. And what Ojie saw next nearly knocked him to his knees. Because the person smiling back at him from that surveillance screenshot was someone he had once called family. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift black voices and expose hidden truths. Ojie couldn't breathe. He leaned in, squinting at the grainy image on the screen, praying it was a mistake. But it wasn't. The timestamp, the office background, the smug smile, it was all unmistakable. The man in the surveillance photo was Troy, his own cousin, the same cousin who had designed the True Brew Collective logo. The one who helped paint walls, brainstorm names, who called him brother, even when they weren't bloodbound that way. "What the hell is he doing in their building?" Ojie muttered. Malik zoomed in on a second image, Troy shaking hands with someone Ojie recognized from Regal Bean's board, an executive who had stepped down months ago after the franchise collapse. "That's not all," Malik said, dropping a thick folder on the table. "Bank records. We traced 3 payments made to an offshore account in Troy's name. Each came shortly after a new location lease was signed by True Brew. They knew your moves before you made them." Ojie sat down hard in a chair, the weight of betrayal crashing on him like a wave. "Troy had my passwords, he helped build our entire backend system. He had access to emails, projections, our marketing strategy, customer analytics, everything." Malik nodded grimly. "We think he was brought in as a plant from the beginning. Or maybe they got to him later. Either way, he's been selling your blueprint while pretending to support you." Ojie's mind swirled with memories, Late-night brainstorms, design sketches, inside jokes, family cookouts. It was like watching a movie of his own life, only to realize the villain had been in every scene. Why would he do this? Ojie asked, more to himself than Malik. He knew what Regal Bean did to me. He knew the mission. Malik spoke softly but firmly. Some people don't want to build legacy. They want quick money, fast power, ego. Ojie's fists clenched. So what now? We expose him? Fire him? Malik shook his head. Not yet. If we do, he disappears. And there's more. The breach may have affected your funding documents with Capital Stone. If they find out your books are compromised, your expansion deals could collapse. You'd lose the Houston project. You'd lose your leverage in the lawsuit. Everything. The silence that followed was loud. Ojie looked out the window, the city below buzzing with motion, oblivious to the war being waged in one man's world. I need to handle this myself, Ojie finally said. Ojie, Malik started. No. I brought him in. He sat at my table. He knew my dream. I need to look him in the eye and find out why. That night, Ojie drove to Troy's apartment. The lights were on. He knocked. Troy. Troy opened the door, eyes wide, voice casual. Yo, what's good, man? You all right? Ojie forced a smile. Yeah. We need to talk. Mind if I come in? Troy stepped aside. Inside, the living room was spotless, sleek. Too sleek for someone who supposedly lived on a modest designer's retainer. Ojie's eyes scanned the space quickly. A new MacBook on the table. Designer sneakers near the couch. Business must be good, Ojie said flatly. Troy chuckled nervously. You know, side gigs, crypto stuff. I dabble. Ojie Saturday, cut the crap, Troy. I know. Troy froze. Know what? Ojie stared at him. The meetings? The payments? The documents you altered? Malik has everything. Why, man? Why'd you sell me out? Troy's face twitched. His charm slipped. You don't get it, Ojie. You made it your story. Your brand. Your image. I built it with you. But you got all the credit. All the spotlight. Ojie stood. You think this was about credit? I was trying to open doors. For all of us. Troy snapped. Doors? You were just another gatekeeper in a better suit. I gave them access because they offered me what you wouldn't, ownership. Ojie stepped closer. You had ownership, Troy. You had a seat at the table I built with blood and sleepless nights. You threw that away for a check. Troy laughed bitterly. You don't know the half of it, cousin. Ojie's eyes narrowed. Then tell me. Troy's grin turned cruel. You think this is just about you? Man, you're not the only one they came for. There's someone else feeding them info. Someone higher up. You're surrounded, Ojie. You built an empire on trust, but you forgot. Rats love the warmth of a palace. Ojie's blood ran cold. Who? But Troy just smirked. You'll find out soon enough. Just know, everything you've built? It's already burning. You just haven't smelled the smoke yet. Ojie backed away, his head spinning. He had walked into this meeting expecting a knife in the back. What he got instead was a warning of an entire ambush. The next morning he raced to his main cafe office. Staff buzzed as usual. The team greeted him warmly. But something was off. When he reached his private office, his assistant met him at the door with panic on her face. Mr. Harris, we just got served. Served? A cease and desist from Capital Stone. They're freezing the expansion funding. And there's more. She handed him another envelope. Legal stationery. He opened it, and his eyes widened. It was a civil suit, filed against him, from a former franchisee of Regal Bean, claiming that Ojie Harris engaged in intellectual property theft and fraud. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Ojie stood frozen in his office, the civil suit papers trembling in his hand. His assistant hovered near the door, her eyes wide with worry, waiting for a command, a reaction, anything. But Ojie said nothing. He just stared at the words intellectual property theft and fraudulent business practices like they were written in a foreign language. This couldn't be happening. He dropped the envelope on his desk and opened his laptop, heart pounding. The plaintiff's name at the top of the document rang no bells. Randall Greaves, a former franchisee from Oregon who claimed that Ojie's True Brew collective concept wasn't original but stolen. Ojie clicked through his legal archives, then internal notes. Randall Greaves had never been part of any deal Ojie touched. But the complaint was airtight, well-written, well-funded, and attached to a law firm known for corporate takedowns. Within the hour, 3 major media outlets picked up the story. The headlines were brutal. Was True Brew built on a lie? From community hero to coffee pirate? The lawsuit that could end Ojie Harris's coffee empire. Ojie called Malik immediately. We've got to crush this thing, fast. This is an orchestrated hit. Malik was already ahead. It's worse than you think, he said. Capital Stone has paused all your pending funding until this is resolved. They don't want the PR heat. Your reputation's officially toxic in investor circles. Ojie ran his hand down his face. Troy said there was another mole. Someone high up. This feels coordinated. They're trying to bury me. Malik nodded. They're not just coming for your business. They want to erase you. Turn you into a cautionary tale. Just then Ojie's phone buzzed again, an encrypted message from an unknown number. You're playing checkers in a chess game, Harris. We warned you. Pull back or we go public with the rest. Attached was a photo. A screenshot of a video call between Ojie and a city zoning commissioner, one who had helped fast-track a permit in Charlotte. It wasn't illegal, but out of context? It could look like backdoor dealing. Ojie cursed under his breath. They're spying on my private calls. Malik's voice turned low. This is corporate warfare. They're not going to stop until you're discredited, dismantled, and irrelevant. But Ojie wasn't one to fold. He went on the offensive. In less than 48 hours he held a press conference, flanked by minority franchisees who publicly defended his integrity. He laid out the documents from Regal Beans' discriminatory history, exposed their internal memos, and shared part of the applicant suppression list, just enough to send shockwaves through the business world. Social media erupted. #BrewTheTruth trended. Dozens of influencers, activists, and media personalities rallied behind Ojie, calling the lawsuit an act of retaliation from the same system he'd exposed. But just as momentum began to shift in Ojie's favor, he got another blow. His financial controller, Kimberly, burst into his office, her face pale. Ojie, it's the ledgers. They've been tampered with. He stared at her. What are you talking about? Somebody went into the books and altered transactions, backdated funds, inflated earnings, made it look like we've been cooking the books. If the IRS gets hold of this, you're looking at a criminal investigation. Ojie's stomach dropped. Can you fix it? Reverse the changes? Kimberly nodded hesitantly. I can trace the IP address. But whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing. It wasn't Troy. It came from inside our headquarters system. The room went silent. Another traitor. Someone still on the inside. Ojie stared out the window at the street below. People sipping his coffee, wearing his merch, believing in a brand that now teetered on the edge of ruin. He whispered, so it's war. And war it was. He launched an internal investigation, fired Troy officially, and began restructuring the leadership team. Malik filed a countersuit against Randall Greaves, alleging defamation and third-party collusion. But just when it seemed like Ojie might regain control, a mysterious package arrived at his doorstep. No return address. No markings. Inside a black flash drive. And a single note. Play this. Alone. And decide who your real enemies are. He plugged the drive into his private laptop. A single video file appeared. He clicked it. The screen flickered. Footage loaded. A hidden camera angle, grainy but clear. A boardroom. Familiar voices. He recognized one voice instantly. Come, boys. Trust it. If we destroy Harris from the inside, the voice said, True Brew collapses without a fight. And I get my cut. I deserve it. He's just another kid who got lucky. Ojie's blood ran cold. The voice belonged to someone he had trusted above everyone else. Someone still at his side. And as the camera panned slightly to reveal their face, Ojie's heart stopped. It was his CO. His right hand. His day one ally. Lisa. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths. Ojie stared at the screen, unable to move. The voice. The smile. The smug confidence. It was Lisa. His chief operating officer. The same Lisa who once cried when they signed the lease for their first cafe. The woman who brought donuts to every staff meeting, who fought with vendors on his behalf, who said, "We're building this together." And now, here she was on hidden camera, plotting his fall for a cut. The video continued. She was seated across from a man Ojie recognized, Lyle Fenwick, former legal advisor to the Regal Bean board. Lisa leaned forward in the footage. "He's too sentimental. Still thinks loyalty is a strategy. I've already given you access to the vendor contracts, the payroll system, and the Houston blueprint. Once the audit triggers a federal look, it'll be over." Lyle nodded. "You'll get your equity stake once he's out. We'll rebrand the stores under new management." The video cut out. Ojie closed the laptop slowly. He felt hollow. Cold. He thought of all the hours they spent building this company, Lisa staying late, offering advice, defending him in public. And yet, behind the curtain, she had been the sharpest blade. That night, Ojie didn't sleep. He walked the floor of his flagship cafe for hours, silently replaying every interaction with Lisa, every missed sign, every clue he had ignored in his blind loyalty. By morning he had a plan. The first step wasn't revenge. It was removal. He summoned his IT head and had Lisa's system access revoked quietly. No confrontation. No warning. Then he called Malik and shared the footage. Malik exhaled slowly. "This is game over, for them. With this, we don't just beat the lawsuit. We bury Regal Bean's entire comeback attempt." Ojie nodded. "I want full criminal complaints filed against Lisa and Troy. And I want every asset transfer traced. We're not just suing. We're pressing charges." Within a week, Lisa was escorted out of the building by authorities. The footage made national news. True Brew COO exposed in corporate espionage scandal. Founder Ojie Harris speaks out. "This was never about coffee, it was about community." Regal Bean's remaining former board members scattered like roaches. The lawsuit from Randall Greaves was withdrawn with prejudice once Malik presented evidence of collusion and sabotage. Capital Stone not only reinstated Ojie's funding, they doubled their investment. But Ojie declined. He didn't want to answer to corporate overlords ever again. Instead, he partnered with the Brew Uprising Coalition and created an independent franchise fund, helping underrepresented entrepreneurs open their own cafes, without red tape, racial bias, or gatekeeping. Within a year, True Brew Collective had over 50 locations across the South and Midwest. And Regal Bean? It was erased from the market. One day, Ojie returned to that same cafe, the very first one that had turned him away. It was now a True Brew community center with free Wi-Fi, after-school programs, and job training for young baristas who reminded him of himself at 23. He stood at the front window watching a young black girl sketching business ideas in a notebook while sipping a caramel oat milk latte. He smiled. He'd come full circle. From rejection to revolution. Never let rejection define you. What others call a flaw may be the very thing that fuels your legacy. When doors close because of bias, build your own with integrity, and leave it open for others to walk through. Trust is sacred. But vision? Vision is unstoppable. And if they ever say you don't fit the image, remind them, you were never trying to fit in. You were born to stand out. The end. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories that uplift Black voices and expose hidden truths.